Hi.
Hi.
Did everybody just hear me yell at my dog?
I did not hear you, so hopefully no one else.
That's great. Hi, Catherine. I'm so glad that you're here. Before we get into our conversation, I just want to tell everybody who we both are, if you're all good with that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
okay, I'll go first. I'm Liz. Hi, everybody. I know most of you already know me. You're here on my channel. Thank you so much. I am here today as an author, which has always been my dream. We're here to talk books today with another fellow author, Catherine Spallino, and we really have this niche of second generation, third generation ex-Scientology memoirs locked down.
Yes. And I
Yes.
have your book too. So I hold it up for everybody. Love it.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Yay.
I
Book
love it.
party.
Matching sets.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about your book? I guess I didn't even say my book's name, but
Yeah.
my
Say
book
your
is
book first, and
okay.
then I'll say my book.
My book is Confessions of an Ex-Scientologist Pothead, and it is a memoir written in confession style, and it's available on Amazon by Liz Gale. Go ahead, Catherine.
Awesome. My book is The Bad Cadet, Growing Up in the Church of Scientology Sea Organization. And it is also available on Amazon and everywhere else for ebook, and Audible coming soon in like a month.
Oh, I want to ask you about that. I'm going to write that down on my questions here.
It takes so long to do. I'm recording it myself, but
Are you?
I'm almost
Are you
done.
recording it at home, or are you going into a studio?
In my son's closet. It's very professional. But I
I
have
love
the right equipment. I'll tell you all about it when we're done with this, if you want.
I'm excited to hear that. Now, do you find that a lot of people, potential readers, ask you for your Audible book?
Yeah, I've had quite a few buy my book, and then they're like, "I'm so sorry, I'm just not a reader, but I want to read your book. Are you going to do an Audible?" And they're like, "And I have friends I want to tell." So I'm like, you know what? Why not? Like, more the merrier. I worked on this book for so long. Why not have it available in other, like, what methods, whether it's reading it or listening to it? So, yeah.
Yeah. I get that feedback quite a bit, that a lot of people really like the story, but reading is kind of not their favorite thing these days.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. Like, I mean, I'm a big reader, so to me, I'm like, it's something like sitting down with the book. But I also understand that, like, even before, with everything that's out there right now, social media and like distractions, there are people who just more would prefer to listen to something or watch a movie to relax. So everybody has their mediums of how they like to enjoy themselves. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can make an Audible, and then they could still enjoy my book.
Absolutely. Well, and
Yeah.
your story is really interesting. So I think if it's just up to somebody wanting to hear it and not look at it, that's awesome. I have not gotten there yet, so I'm just fascinated by the concept of an audiobook. I will be right there buying yours right off the bat, just to to take note.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my son has come into the room.
Hello.
I don't. Thank you. He's found a way to get out of his chores after all. He said, "Do you
Oh.
want me to?" Yeah, he asked me if he should vacuum, which no,
Oh.
he shouldn't, because of the sound. Our
Oh, the
house is pretty
sound.
small,
Okay.
so he
Yes.
may have temporarily won the day.
They're so good at that. They are so
Oh,
good.
he's a very clever guy. Anyway, so the love of books, I'm gonna add a picture up here.
Mhm.
My love of books, I want to share. There's 3 of us, right? There's 3 of us women authors who've written books about Scientology, generational. And so I want to do this Born in Book Club. And I want to go through your book first, and I've been reading it. Um, and start a book club, start a discussion about it, and go over. I'm not going to be reading, chapter by chapter your book, and there's no reading necessary to follow along. But I do want to give people who have read the book, who are going to read the book, some visuals, and then some sort of other second generation ex Scientologist insight, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
Um, so that said, has your book been in a book club before that you know of?
So I was on the Graded Daughters, channel, and we did a book
Mhm.
club. That was a few months ago, and that was a lot of fun. And then I've done in person. I have a good friend of mine who like had like 15 friends. We did one, or maybe it was like 10, whatever. We went to a brewery. It was super fun and had a couple drinks, very informal, and I chatted
Okay.
with them. So that was really fun. Yeah, so those are the two. Yeah, and I know that there's been other book clubs that have happened and people have messaged me like, "Our book club enjoyed your book." So it's kinda
Oh,
jump onto your channel and, like, if they had more questions, and hopefully I'll answer them there too on your channel, you know?
yeah, for sure. Well, and in the future, we'll get this streaming on your channel as well.
Yeah, once I
Well,
figure that
our
out.
technical difficulty. Um, yes, and so today we're not gonna discuss either one of our books in, great detail, but I have a couple questions for you since I'm about to be diving in head first.
Mhm. Yes.
Also, you're my October book, and it's already mid-October, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
be making up for a little bit of lost time, which I don't think will be hard because I sat down last night and started it, and I'm already at, like, chapter 6, and I just sat down, I feel like, for a hot minute, so,
Mhm.
um, what do you think would be important for people to know reading your book that have not like, don't know anything about you, don't know and, like, nothing going into
Mhm.
it? What do you think people should know?
I think that they should know that my book is very accessible, actually, and you don't need to know anything. Like, I literally start from the beginning, and I'm very young and innocent, and I give a very as I learn things, you're learning with me, the reader. So you'll right away at the beginning of my book, it has an introduction, and it says the basic facts, which is my parents were in the Sea Org, which is the Church of Scientology's inner clergy, if you want to call it a clergy. It's not a clergy, but what you compare it to. And I was literally born into the Sea Org. And that's how, and the book will begin when I'm 6 years old. So anyone who's like, oh, I don't know enough about Scientology to be reading a book about it, it's like, no, my book is like not going to just be throwing you to the wolves. It's very um, accessible, I would say. Yeah.
Right. Whoa. Right. I found that right away too. And this line really, really stuck out to me right off the bat in the foreword. I was a
Mhm.
Sea Org baby.
Yes.
I know what that means,
Hmm.
but I'm really excited for other people to read and to find out what that means. Now, I also noticed that your book, so our books are very different. We're obviously very different people, and
Hmm.
we're artists, and we approach our stories with the freedom of expression. I noticed that yours was listed on Amazon under children and families as a category. So,
Hmm.
who's the ideal reader here? Would this be appropriate for my 17-year-old son to read?
Yeah, it's for a young adult, so I was trying to go for, like, 12 and up, like, 11-year-old could even read it. It's definitely a coming of age story. There's a
Okay,
little bit of swear words in there, but not enough to be rated R.
right on.
So, I would say it's definitely young adult, so I put it in kids and family because there's so much of, like, that coming of age feelings of, like, the angst when you're, like, in middle school,
Mm,
um, and intertwined in this book. It's not just about Scientology, it's literally a coming of age inside a cult. What is that like? And so many people I have heard can really relate to it. So it's been really amazing.
it really is amazing. It really is amazing. I mean,
It's different. It's not like the traditional Scientology memoirs in the sense that it's not like I hate Scientology because it's I'm doing it from a point when I loved Scientology. So it's like you get to see the indoctrination side of it really well while I'm struggling with my normal teenage stuff, while I'm being neglected because I have no parents, while I don't really understand that. And I think it's normal. And it's this weird journey that you can take with me because it's very weird. And that was why I wrote the book.
When
Yeah.
did you first know that your journey was weird? I'm not calling it weird. I'm using your
No, it
word.
is weird. It's unusual and strange.
Because
I
I had a moment at my boarding school when I was probably 9 years old. I remember it clear as day walking into a building, hitting the top of the thing and thinking, "My life is weird. I'm gonna write a book about this one day."
Oh my gosh, I totally did that too. So I was when I was at the ranch, I would journal and write in my diaries. I didn't call it journaling. I wrote in my diary like a young child, but I was very aware that it was a weird, like I knew from reading books and watching, we did get to watch movies, that our life was not normal. And I was like, one day maybe I'll write a book about this, just like these other young memoirs that I've read, or like,
Mhm.
Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, like
Yep.
books like that, where it's like about a young child growing up. I'm like, I
Mhm.
was very aware that this isn't normal. And I wasn't doing it in a way like I'm going to write about it to attack Scientology. I was like, I wonder, I don't think a lot of people are growing up like this. I wonder if this is going to be a story to tell one day. There was also a part of me that was like, but I probably could never tell it because I knew that how Scientology is like.
Right.
I'm like, because I knew that there was some things about the ranch that were wrong, like where we were doing a
Mhm.
lot of work. I'm like, this is weird. It seems like child abuse. And I would
Mhm.
say that out loud. I was like, this is child abuse. And they're like, get to work. So I'm like, well, those parts probably like, will I be able to ever write this book? I don't know, but I like the idea of it.
Mhm. What had to happen in your life to get you to the point where you were able to write this book?
Well, similar to, I don't know if it's similar to you necessarily, but Leah Remini's show was very life changing for me, even though I was not on it, because my best friend Miriam and my other good friend at the time, Sina, were on the show and I knew about it. And then my
Mhm.
parents, a best friend of mine called me and like got that information from me without me. She was a Scientologist. And
Mm.
I thought she was just trying to have a real conversation with me. And
Mhm.
I unwittingly told her about Sina and Miriam being on the show. And then I realized towards the end of the call, I'm like, I think there's an MAA with her, like an ethics
Mm.
officer is what they
Yeah.
would be called. And I'm like, I think this was a setup. And I'm like, please don't report me. You know that they'll take my mom away, my sister. I literally am crying on the phone. And then
Mm.
she blocked me she's like, okay, yeah, I won't. And then hangs up and blocked me on everything. It
Mm.
was horrible. She was in my wedding, like a really dear friend of mine. So from there, literally my sister she called me and said, she was upset that I knew about the show and I didn't say anything to her. And she stopped talking to me. She's like, we need a break. That's what they called it. My mom and my dad and my sister. And then I didn't hear from them again for 6 years. And I
Mhm.
only heard from them recently because Nora and Aaron connected me with a phone number and I was able to, because I had no way of contacting them. But
Oh,
anyway,
I
so
see.
when that all happened and they like deserted me again, this is the second time in my life they've done that, but I had gotten them back before. This time around, I was like, you know what? Like I had been working on the book, but I just
Mhm.
didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I
Mm.
didn't think I'd ever release it because of my parents. And then once they were taken from me, I was like, I guess I'm going to release this book. Like, this is a story that I've been wanting to tell. And I didn't want to tell it because I didn't want to lose them. And then they took them from me anyway. The church did, which is just so like typical of the church to like cause
Yeah.
people to speak out because they keep doing things that are harmful to people and then people can't take it anymore.
Yeah, that's a crappy story to have happened to you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Um, in the end, though, it does sound like a story of redemption that I really identify with because there is that like, well, if you take away that very last thing that was keeping me in line.
Mhm.
Do you wanna talk about connecting back up with your family after this book came out?
Yeah, well, I was able to reach them and they acted like nothing had happened. Turns out they're like listed as like the elderly people. You know that list that came out that
Yep.
Rosemary had
Mhm.
reported on? They're on that list. And
Oh.
but this is before the list had even come out, like months before.
Okay.
I already gotten contacted because they're like, oh, we know who Catherine is. We know these parents because I had just started speaking out.
Okay.
So I was able to call them and we had a great conversation, but it was a very surreal conversation because they acted like everything was normal. And when I asked, I was like, Mom, like, why don't we see each other? It's okay to disagree on things. And she was just like, I need to talk to my ethics officer. Are you still talking to Miriam? I'm like, oh my God. Like, why does it matter? I didn't say that part to her, but I was like, okay, you do what you have to do, but I'm always here. The door is always open. And then the next day, the phone number was disconnected. So I had no way of reaching her again. So I'm sad. Like, I know that they basically probably audited her or like had her do conditions or something for talking to me in the first place. You know, I just want her, like, she's so old and my dad is so old. I'm like, I would love for them to be able to come out and just retire, like, let them go. And like, they haven't seen my kids in 6 years. It's so sad. It's like the last time they saw my twins, they were a year old. Now my twins are 7 years old, missing so much. And my oldest is 10. And yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get to see them, but I'm not giving up. Like, I don't have hatred towards them because I know that they're just indoctrinated to think that they're doing the best thing. They think saving the world is more important than their daughter. Like, oh, that's what the Scientology tries to make you compare it to. And it's like, it's so wrong, but they don't know that. And my sister too. I'm like, oh, God, got to get her out. Her life is just draining. She's 44, 45. I'm like, you still have a life ahead of you if she came out. So if she ever watched this, she could always come stay with me for free. I would take care of you, get you set up, but I don't know.
That's
Sometimes,
a heck of an offer.
yeah. And it's like all it takes is that moment of like, I was always a rebel, so I always didn't follow the rules. Everybody in the Sea Org has moments where they want to break out, or like I feel
Yeah.
like where they might do something, and if they just go on the internet and like read something, and maybe they'll see one of my interviews, and be like, oh, maybe this is wrong. But again, the odds of this happening are slim. But I'm an optimist, and I'm like, maybe.
Mm. Do you think that they've read your book?
No.
No.
I think that they might know about it. Oh, well, they do know about it. I told my mom about it. So maybe they will, but I don't think so. And like, I don't know how my mom's doing. She's listed as having dementia. She sounded fine on the phone. I don't know which type of dementia she has. I don't know what that means. I would love to get clarity on that. If it's like early onset, like she knew who I was. She asked about my kids. So I don't know if she is even able to read these days. She was an avid reader too. So we'll see. I don't know.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm so moved by your situation because every time, like every other phrase, I just identify. Our
Mm-hmm.
the path. It's amazing that we could create really such different works of art and different books because there is so much so much similarity. I'm so sorry
Yeah.
that happened with your mom. I don't know, life can be so cruel. I don't know if it's better to like give you that little bit and then just take it away again. I'm sorry.
I'm glad I had that conversation, like,
Good.
regardless of everything, even though I'm not seeing them, because at least I got to talk to them and I got to
Mhm.
say my truth. Like, I actually had to call her back and tell her about my book because I hung up and then I was like, she's definitely going to report this. And I don't want her to find out about my book through the ethics officer. So I
Right.
called her and I told her about it myself. And she was like, is it attacking Scientology? And I was like, I don't think so, which is true.
Mhm.
Another thing about my book is it doesn't attack Scientology. You just
Mhm.
figure out for yourself a lot of these things that I went through as a child are wrong. That's what the
Mhm.
reader is going to discover on their own. I don't have to do anything. I'm just telling my story, if that makes sense.
It
So,
does, and that, is a really impressive feat to
mhm,
accomplish, and I think that so much of how you were able to weave that spell has to do with how your story is written. Like, it's not written in first person, it's
mhm,
written as if you're, third person, as if you're watching it unfold, and
mhm,
so I just really appreciated the voice of the narrator because just starting out you can tell it's a young child. You are immediately popped into the mind of a young child who was raised as as a Sea Org baby. um, that's not easy to do as
yeah,
far as
thanks.
writing craft goes.
Yeah, I definitely was very intentional about it. And the greatest part is when my cadet friends read it and they're like, oh my gosh, this book is so you. Like, that's so Catherine in this story. Like I captured my friends around me and what they were like. They're like, oh yeah, I was totally like that in that moment. And like, so for them to see everything and like see it through my eyes, they're like, your world was so similar to mine, even though I was living it alongside yours, but also different. Like, I didn't know you
Right.
were thinking these thoughts, or I had those thoughts at the same time. it's a very empowering thing for me now. Like, because when I was done writing it, I was like, this is kind of, as an artist, you doubt yourself. And I
Right.
was just like, why am I writing this young coming of age, teenage, like frivolous, seems so frivolous story? But it's actually something that people have really connected to and have told me that they've connected to, because it really captures what a teenager and what a young person is like when they're in a
Mhm.
cult, and it's not just like cut and dry. And then this happened to me, and then this happened to me. It's like I
Right.
am emotionally like totally invested in this world, and how
Right.
do I come out of that world? Yeah.
That's so fascinating. I have written a novel and I'm not really ready to put it out to the world yet, but it's a story of a woman who goes through whatever, she joins a cult and does all this stuff. But it is
Wow.
really interesting to
Mhm.
craft that storytelling because you like reveal little bits of information as your character finds it out. And then the reader is looking at it going like, "Stop, it's a trap, it's a trap."
Mhm.
But your
Yeah.
character doesn't know that. And so it does provide for a really interesting reading experience, I think.
Yeah.
So
Thanks. I think
I'm
so
really
too.
excited to continue on with it. I want to show you something.
Mhm.
I don't know. I hope you like it. One of my goals to on this book club is I'm making a mood board
Ooh, I
for
love it.
every book. So if you don't mind, I want to show you the mood board I created.
Okay.
See
I'm ready.
here. I'm gonna have my concentration face. It's the worst. Here we go. Can you see it?
It's loading. Oh, here we go. Cute.
Okay. I don't know if you
Okay, take the
recognize anything
Twizzlers
in here.
off. We need red vines.
I know, I put those on there, red vine specifically. Okay, I will change those.
I'm
I
just
was like,
joking, but it's funny. My son and I both love red vines, and it's like a
it's
thing.
specifically red vines. It's not red licorice, huh? Okay,
Yeah,
see? The
it's so
things.
California only. Everywhere in
Okay.
Minnesota always has Twizzlers at the movie theater. It's so annoying.
Okay. Really
No,
good to know.
sorry. This is so cute. 90s
No, I
acoustic
love it.
pop,
I love it. I want it to
Hollywood.
be as close as I can. Um, I don't know why I decided to do one of these, but I just think it's super fun. I love the idea of just for every book, like snuggling up and setting the scene.
Mhm,
And so we have our Los Angeles candle. It smells like bergamot and rose, so I hope that's good. I almost
mhm.
put a Glade candle on there because I was like, I almost wanted that cleaning smell after like a stinky dorm.
Yeah.
But I thought that'd be too mean for the readers. Um, Sprite is on there.
Mhm,
I know you know why. All these are little Easter eggs for your book.
mhm.
I also picked a soundtrack that I'm going to turn on when reading your book. It is 90s acoustic instrumental pop. It's so good.
Nice. I
It's
love
all
that.
90s music, but no words. And then I had to throw in a little Ben Affleck in
Oh
there.
my god. I had a poster of him above my Sea Org bunk bed,
Yeah,
and
that's in your
people would
book
tell me
end.
to take it down. I was like, "No."
So there you go. We can all be rebellious
I can't
with a
believe
little
we
Ben
have Ben
Affleck.
Affleck though, because that's funny. Like, it's like he was not that big in the 90s. He was getting big. He had Armageddon, but like I just for some reason really liked him.
Armageddon was everything. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
so good.
That was
And the
like,
song,
oh,
everybody, Aerosmith.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Seriously, I still sing. Actually, my best friend, that's one of her karaoke songs. But if she's not out, I'm allowed to sing it.
Yeah, nice. Oh my gosh. It's so
Yeah.
funny too. Like all of those 90s and 80s, I tried to drop in my book too, like little
Hmm.
books that I was reading at the time, movies, because everybody who's like in our generation could totally relate. They're like, "Oh yeah, that."
Exactly. Well, I almost brought it out for this little meeting, but I have the Boxcar Children on my shelf like to this
Oh my
day.
gosh.
But I'm going to go through.
Classic.
These are all little Easter eggs. I'm going to go through and um that's in one of these early chapters. So I'm going to be on this YouTube probably quite a bit going through. And I'm
Mhm.
like I said, not going to read your whole thing, but we're going to talk about chapter by chapter
Mhm.
and all the insights. And I'm going to set up my cozy little candle space, put a little Ben Affleck picture up. That's where I'll be
That's
reading.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be so fun. Um, can I ask you what books helped you heal? You said you're an avid reader. Were there any
Yeah.
books or stories in particular that like helped you in any way?
I mean, coming out of Scientology, I loved Janet Reitman's book. What is it
Uh-huh.
called?
Inside
Um,
Scientology?
Inside Scientology. That was an eye opener. Because going on the internet is something, but there's so much stuff on the internet, and there wasn't
Mhm.
YouTube like there is now.
Right.
There was like Zenu.net, and like that's kind of a lot. Like those message boards. This is early 2000s. So
Right.
yeah, Janet Reitman's book, and then watching Going Clear. And then I read Glowing Clear before the actual HBO series came out, Lawrence Wright's
Mhm.
book. So those ones were really eye-opening and just confirmed what I was already feeling and what I was
Right.
starting to see on the internet. And facts, like there were such great facts. And then I would read like excerpts from John Atak's book, A Piece of Blue Sky. That was really
Mhm.
good. And that was so cool. I got to talk with him. He interviewed with me like a few months ago. So that was surreal. Um, so that those ones I highly recommend to anybody. But like
Okay.
for like regular good books reading, like I read Educated, like memoirs,
Mhm.
Tara Westover. Have you read that?
I
Educated?
haven't read it. I have it on my shelf. I think I've read the first few chapters, but I don't know what happened. I
It's
fell off.
very similar in some ways to our upbringing, but not. But
Right.
she's a pessimist, and I can't handle that.
Oh, okay. Maybe that I remember there was something about it where I was really into it and I tried and then I was like had to take a break.
Yeah,
Um,
she's like it's a great story, well written. I would recommend it still. My friends
mhm,
enjoyed it a lot. I just found that like for me, when she was able to do certain things like go to college and go to Oxford and was
mhm,
still she obviously had mental health issues and you know that in Scientology they're very like get it together, like don't have mental
right.
health issues. So I think even then I was still kind of just coming out of Scientology reading it. I was just like, God, stop complaining. You go to Oxford, you know? I wonder if I read it now, I would be more empathetic, you know?
Right. Yeah,
So, because I read
perhaps.
it so long ago.
Perhaps. Um, that's interesting. What about
Oh, me too.
Jenna Miscavige Hill's book?
Oh, yes, I read that one too. That was really interesting to read. Yeah.
I'm gonna pull
She
this up
her
here.
the Int Ranch is so different from the Pack Ranch, and on top of it, she was treated and special in some ways, but worse in other ways because she was like sec check, which is like when they take you into an auditing room and have you do confessionals over and over and over, like way, way more than any right person in the right mind should have done to her, especially as a child.
Right.
So I feel like she was almost tortured more in a way. I would love to
Mhm.
the chance to talk with her sometime about it, like because her upbringing and mine are the polar opposites. Being we're both cadets, she is the top level. Her parents, her dad was the brother of David Miscavige. My parents are the lowest level, the service level people. My mom was a teacher at my ranch school for a little bit, and then she was a letter registrar. Like, how low can you go? And you see like how neglected I am because I'm like at the lowest rung. And then for her, she's definitely not neglected, but a little too much attention, a little too much pressure, all the auditing. It would be an interesting comparison. Like, yeah. But I did read her book and it was definitely very fascinating and eye-opening and also made me realize I was lucky to go to the Pack Ranch, which is a weird thing to say because the Int Ranch is a lot more strict than the Pack Ranch.
Hmm. Well, I think
I
we
don't
can
know if
all
you've
find
ever heard
ours.
that. Huh?
I haven't heard too much. It's funny. I have never really thought to compare them specifically against each other.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely will. Um, I think that's why I think our three voices and our three I'm just looping Jenna in on this here because
Yeah.
partially I feel like I would have never written my book if she hadn't have done hers, and hers is like 9 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
um, Still having an impact directly. So I felt like if I'm going to choose a books for Born in book club, it of course has to, include hers. She could
Yeah.
not make it today, but she did say she would love to join us for another time, Catherine. So we'll
Oh, that would
definitely get
be
that
really amazing.
on the books for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
she definitely I was like, "Wow, I'm like, "She's doing what I always wanted to do." Like, she did it. 'Cause I was I like I said, I had this book percolating for so long, and then when her book came out, I was like, "Oh, it's real, it's out there." And I mean, amazing. She's like a bestseller and everything.
I
So,
know. Well, and I think. obviously you and I are self-published, so it's a very
Mhm.
different experience than
Yeah.
being traditionally published. So, like, for example, when, people out there support us by purchasing our book, we pretty much find out about it right away. And, whatever royalties we're going to get kind of start at that time, and we get it
Mhm.
whenever. Um, with the traditionally published books, it's so different how that, the time frames are, and then what you have access to. Because she went on, whoa, um, what shows did she go on?
Good
Like Good
Morning
Morning
America.
America.
Yeah, Inside
Yeah.
Edition, I think.
Yeah, some really, really big platforms, and I remember thinking the same thing when I saw her. I was under the radar, and I remember seeing her doing that circuit and that tour, and just thinking, "Damn," because I wanted to do it also, but I didn't know that anybody really could. And I
Mhm.
think for one of the first times in my life, it really, like, role models actually meant something different to me,
Mhm.
because my brain, like, made a new pattern watching her go through it, that, wow, someone can do this. And so
Yeah.
there's a chance that you and I could be that for
Mhm.
somebody else, which is, like, super inspiring.
Yeah. I know, it is really cool. I've actually had a cadet friend reach out and they're like, "I wanna do a graphic novel kinda style of his childhood growing up." I'm like, "Oh, that would be so cool." So I think that it definitely helps to see the more faces, the merrier.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's more inspiring and awesome for others to see, and then they're like, "Oh, I can tell this story too. It's okay." And it's kinda amazing, really.
Yeah, it is real. I think it really is amazing. And everybody has their own, because books are an art. Telling our
Mhm.
story is an art. And of course, they're all going to be different. And I've noticed, maybe I'm going a little too far here, but, like, so yours and my books have come out rather recently. Some
Yeah.
of these other books that have come out in the past, how do I explain this? You and I have had the liberty of really to put our artistic expression into the books,
Yeah.
whereas I've noticed some of the past books really were, like, very academic and maybe a little more narrative to, like, set the scene. Where we're
Yeah.
lucky enough that so much of the scene has already been set. People know so much already. Um, but I just think it's really great, this graphic novel idea of that you mentioned. All those different, I don't know, expressions, they all start to mean something. And I think if I go back to
Mhm.
these books here, so between Jenna Miscavige's book, your book,
Yeah.
and my book, you literally will have three completely different perspectives of growing up in Scientology. Yet I suspect you'd almost be an expert in it, because
Mhm.
the three threads, the, like, parallels of everything are going to be so obvious.
Yeah, and I'm like, even with your book, which has been really cool, is like I'm about a third of the way through, and I it's so interesting to read it like from the Scientology wealthy or the Scientologist elite. Like these are the public I heard about. These are the
Right.
people who are like we're supposed to be servicing. And yet you have so many instances where you're being treated like I'm being treated because it's still all Scientology in the end, where like
Right.
you get these same emotional like feelings of guilt and self-thought, like where you're like regulating your thoughts because you feel guilty because
Mhm.
you don't want to do what's the right Scientology thing to do, but you're just a
Right.
kid, like all of that. So it's been really interesting. And like you're saying, like they all kind of like overlay each other because they're all so similar, but so different because we all have our own story. But Scientology
Yeah.
is just like in it.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I even wrote about this in my book a little bit, like, being able to reclaim my story and being able to tell the truth about what happened was something, that a luxury that I didn't really have very much growing up.
Hmm.
And the few times that I did sort of open my mouth to, not even to talk badly about Scientology, but just to tell my story, just to tell
Yeah.
what had happened, I couldn't do that because that would look bad on Scientology, right? So, like, I
Yeah.
had a brother who unalived himself, who,
Hmm.
that's not a positive thing.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can talk about that and have Scientology not look a little shady if he was raised with Scientology standards. And so I was never able to really speak about any of those things. So I have had several coming to, like, I call it coming to Jesus. I don't know
Yeah.
what, like, big moments from
Yeah.
the book. Um Have you had, not to put you on the spot, but like does any memory like moment stand out after you wrote the book of like someone coming to you or something and you're like, "Yes, that's why." I mean, you've said a few examples,
Mhm.
but I'm just curious like how much has it impacted you
I
in a
mean,
good
the
way?
biggest thing I said I had so many insecurities even coming out with this book. I was
Mhm.
worried that it would be shunned by the people who know about the truth about Scientology. I was worried people who are ex-Scientologists would actually not like the book because
Mm,
it's so innocent and it's
mm,
not an attack on Scientology. So
mhm,
when John Atak read my book and he said that I still can't believe it. I'm like, he loved it. And he's like, I can't
mhm,
read these books anymore. I've been sent so many and I couldn't put yours down. You have a fresh look on Scientology that is needed for people to
mhm.
understand that these are people in the Church of Scientology, that they're not like meant to just be like the people themselves who are working in the Sea Org believe they're doing good.
Right.
And like I'm showing the characters of the people, and most of them are good people, not all of them,
Mhm.
obviously, just like in the real world. But I'm just showing that overall umbrella of the church and how what it was like for me and through a young person's eyes, and it's very relatable. And he really enjoyed it. So that moment was when I was like, okay, I was meant to to put this book out there. Like it was just very like
Yeah.
affirming for me, especially from somebody who's like so respected. And I didn't
Mhm,
know if men would enjoy this book, to be honest. It's very like I felt like more female audience driven.
mhm.
Um, so that was a really good moment and very like it helped me with my confidence.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
great to hear. I
Mhm.
That sounds like a big props, I
Yeah.
really look up to, Johnny Attack, and I think he knows his stuff, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Great.
like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." I keep thanking him all the time. Send him emails.
Well, and I was linking your book earlier, to the Born In Book Club website, which is really just on my personal blog, but, you have over 70, Amazon reviews and a
Mhm.
very high rating on your book,
Yeah.
and,
I won't
uh
lie, I read those reviews and they make me happy.
oh, there you go, everybody. You heard it here. As
Yeah.
part of the book club, we will be
Yeah.
leaving reviews.
Well, I like it's just so sweet. Like some of the people, a lot of them I don't know. Like the first 20, or
Mm,
some of them are cadets I grew up with, and they say it in the review, full disclosure, which, but I'm like, that's great because it's also letting people know, like, I am telling the truth. They were there with me. Um,
yeah.
and then there's just people I don't even know who are like, I don't know anything about Scientology, but you let me learn so much. And like, you're just like a regular girl growing up in this. It's so cool. And I'm just like,
Mhm,
it's so that I like these messages, and people DM me on Instagram and I respond when they say what they think about my book. And it's always, I'm like amazed at how positive everybody's been, because that's scary too, right? Putting yourself out there and like people being negative about your book, or because you put a lot of work and your soul is like in this story. It's
yeah.
not like it's just like a frivolous thing. But everybody, like overall, most of the feedback, like 98% has been positive.
Mhm.
So that's been amazing.
That's so great to hear. Have you
Yeah.
had anybody, because you name some names in your book, you had some friends that,
Mhm.
I know you submitted, not I don't wanna say submitted, that's the wrong word, shared, that's a better word, with some of your friends ahead of time. Was there anybody that you were, like that you were nervous about having in your book or any, like, were
Um,
you nervous about any of that?
yeah, there's like one of my friends, I love her and she's great, but she's super critical. So I was
Mm,
like, what is she gonna say? Like she's probably gonna hate this, but she really enjoyed it and shared it with her husband. So that like I always want to know if I'm telling what they see. Like when I would have them read it, and they all were like, "Yeah, like that's how I remember it. Like you
mhm,
got it. Like I kept you actually reminded me of things that I forgot about." Was like the overall feedback. So I think I was more nervous. I was like, "Am I capturing it wrong, or are they going to disagree?" But this is how I remember it, and this is like But to get their corroboration, like, no, that's how it was. Like, oh my gosh, you captured that. I totally forgot about those moments. Was
mhm.
pretty cool.
That's some of the best things an author can hear, right? That, like, you captured it, like, you got it. You
Yes.
nailed that
Oh my
experience.
gosh. It's so phenomenal. And like, I'm not trying to sound like boosting myself up, but a few of them like cried a little
Please
bit.
do. Please
Yeah.
do.
Like they were like, I can't
Mhm.
believe it. Like you wrote our story. Like even though it's my
Yeah.
story, it's their story too. They were there. This is what
Mhm.
happened. And now they could share it. Like I have friends who are like, I have given this to my family members who are not Scientologists who like they didn't see them at all growing up, but now that they're out of Scientology, they could give it to them and be like, this is how I grew up. And
Right.
it's like a great tool so someone
Mm.
could relate to them and understand them better. So it's that part has been so inspiring. It's so cool to me. And I'm like, okay, I will definitely write the next book because I'm always been planning to, but it just gives me more of that momentum to know like people want to know the second half of the story because this part is just me growing up in the Sea Org. There's a whole story that happens for when I'm a Scientologist and how to get out of Scientology itself and how I did that and
Mhm.
what was it that made me want to leave. And I think that is a very actually in a way not more important, but it's like how does somebody come out of Scientology? It's such an interesting question, right? It's so
Mhm.
hard and it's so different for everyone. So I'll tell my story of how that happened, and I hope when I do that that will also help other people figure out how to get someone out of a cult, whatever cult they're in.
Wow, you've got that's some big goals.
Yeah,
I think you could do
book
it.
number two. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm just teasing you because I feel you, and I think you're onto it. I mean, I think you're onto something because it is being able to put yourself in somebody else's situation safely, like to read your book and become a cadet
hmm
safely in the like coziness of your pink blanket and your bergamot candle.
hmm
I don't know, it really does change the patterns in our brain. It actually creates new concepts and awareness and like new synapses. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful. Have you heard of the hashtag I got out?
yeah,
So I looked on their website not too long ago and it really blew me away. One of the things that they had on there. Um, because for me, I'm always trying to answer the question of why did I write my book? I still don't
yeah.
totally know.
hmm
I'm just out here blowing in the wind. You sound like you've got it together. You've got goals. I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
No,
Um,
it's yeah, I get it though, because I was still like I said, it wasn't until I had some more affirmations come in and everything. Like it's a growing experience.
it
So
is. It is.
yeah,
Well, in that website, it says, just this simple act, I'm going to paraphrase, this simple act of sharing our stories can help ease the burden that someone else is going through in a cult or a high control environment. And I really appreciate, I think that's what they said, ease the burden.
yeah, that
Because
totally that relates. Like I get that.
yeah, and
hmm
and in my mind, I get a little Pollyanna, like, "Oh, I can help people leave Scientology, or I can, like, fix someone." That's not gonna happen, my family's in there, that's too much pressure. But to just ease someone's burden, that I can handle, and
hmm
that feels way more powerful in some ways because Scientology always had the answer, and I'm very wary of, like, "This is the answer, this is the answer." But I wanna help. So I like the
hmm
idea of easing someone's burden by sharing the story. And it sounds like your second book is going to have a similar, how do I say this? Like, impact to ease people's burden.
I think so. I think it'll show the what it's like for anybody who's leaving any high control environment, whether it's a cult of the
Mhm.
Church of Scientology, cult of Scientology, or any other cult, or even a relationship of that moment of like of how much time it takes for somebody to really process things. Because you're going to see me as a young from 17 and then
Right.
to now, but I'm going to try to capture this. It was like 17 to 22 is when it wasn't until I was in my like early 20s, I'm sorry, where I was actually starting to realize, oh, this is kind of messed up and like this isn't right. And how does someone get there? It has to be on their own. You can't make somebody do it. So that's like a
Yeah.
very interesting story to tell. And like I was watching Jenna Miscavige's interview with Aaron Smith Levin, which was amazing. And
Mhm.
she had such like great point. She said, she's like, I got out, I escaped Scientology, I wrote the book, I thought I was done, but I didn't
Right.
realize, she's like, I didn't realize how much more growing I had to do and how much more learning, how susceptible she was to manipulation. And I was
Mhm.
like, gosh, like that is so on point. Like that's such a great like way to put it. Like you don't just leave. Like even for myself, even though I've been out of Scientology for whatever, 38, so like almost 15 years,
Mhm.
I am raising children now, and I have
Yep.
to figure out the right way to raise them. And I don't have a modeled family to go back to. So I have a therapist that I can refer to, I can talk about with things and figure out. I'm still figuring stuff out because it's
Mhm.
never, everybody has room for growth, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
The day we don't, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah. So even though my book
Mhm.
will show like that part of my journey, even now there's still like a second journey that's happening as a parent, which is
Mhm.
like I'm learning so much every day and I'm trying to be a good parent basically because that's all I wanted when I was a young child.
Yeah, well, and that's all we can really do to heal our own stuff sometimes, real is to
Mhm.
know that we're not repeating the same mistakes. We're making new mistakes. New mistakes are okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and learning and getting better from them.
exactly. Well, and it's funny, you bring up the mom thing. I'm working on a second book too. It's addicting, right? A little bit
Oh, wow,
addicting.
look at you.
They put
You're
way too much power in our hands by just you already published one on Amazon and you find out how I want to say easy, but it's not easy to write
you've
it.
done it, so now you could do it. Yeah,
There you go.
I'm done.
Confessions of an Ex-Scientologist Mom is actually my
Yes,
next book
I
to
can't wait
tackle
to read that.
some of those things. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what comes of us and our big dreams.
Oh my
But for
gosh, I'm so
now, we should
excited.
focus on our accomplishments. And I am so excited to dive in to reading The Bad Cadet. I'm really
Mhm.
hoping that I can go through and do some chapters and then have you back at least one time to ask you
Mhm.
questions. I thought maybe one time would be enough, but now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'll come as many times as you want. Is your child there?
He's over here. Now he's trying to get something. What's happening now?
He's going taking me now?
Um, I'll check back in 10 minutes. He doesn't
Well,
like that answer.
if I go ask him and he says it's just because he
10 minutes. No more conversation. 10 minutes. Okay, bye.
said that 20 minutes ago.
I did not. I was on a live 20 minutes ago. Anyway, thanks for listening to that, guys. I'm trying to get more flexible with these live things because I'm in the house and they don't have school today. So
Yeah, I totally relate. I have 3 kids and they've stepped into many interviews.
I know, right? It's a wonder that we even ever either one of us really wrote books.
Oh
Twins
my
for you.
gosh. Okay, I
You
have this
it's
quick
crazy.
story with kids. I literally the night before my interview with John Atak, I had I was in the ER with my twins because I was worried they were dehydrated because they had a stomach bug. They're
Oh,
fine. We get home. But I was up all night just worried about them, just checking on them over and over. So then I email in the like at midnight. I'm like, I don't think I could do this interview with John. I'm going to reschedule, but he doesn't see it. So at 10, he starts ringing in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's ready. And I'm like, well, I have to do it because like he's set this time aside. He's ready to go. And he was so nice about it. He's like, we can reschedule. I was like, no, it's fine. I can do it. But my kids might appear because they're homesick. And
right.
literally while we're doing it, one of my sons, Leo, opens the door. He's like, Mom, can I get a snack? I'm like, oh, I'll be right back. But so yeah, it's just part of life. And I think most people are understanding.
I think so. Well, and what's the point of having your own, YouTube channel or writing your own thing, doing your own book if you just have to be like a robot? I'm done being a
Yeah,
robot. I'm
yeah.
done with that part of my life.
Totally.
Um, I am pretty protective about my kids though, because I don't put them on screen really ever on anything. So
Hmm.
uh, I guess you guys will just have to get used to. All you will hear is negotiation.
Yeah, on
It's
the
just
side.
yeah, it's all going to be conversations about snacks, not wanting to do chores, and negotiations on how to get things. That sounds like a very healthy and wonderful 9-year-old childhood to me.
Maybe one day, my 10-year-old and your 9-year-old will meet. That would
Oh
be
my
fun.
gosh, I would love that. One thing I'd really love to do, and this book club, it's funny introducing a club to ex-cult members. It gets a little weird. Um, but I really do want to have like create a community, read more books, like just and have some events is my whole point. I think it'd be
Mhm.
so cool to eventually have some sort of get together or book fair or symposium or what
That
have
would
you.
be so fun. I
It'd be
love
really
that
cool.
idea. And we could have like all the like SBTV people there,
Mhm.
anybody who's written books, anybody who's done anything like that, blogs, whatever. Yeah,
Right?
that would be
Um,
cool.
that would be really cool. I know there've been a few meetups here and there. I know security becomes just sort of like everybody gets a little nervous, but
Mhm.
we could figure it out. When I'm a
Mhm.
grown up, maybe on book 2, I'll learn how to do something like that. Um, well, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much. Was there anything else that you think anybody should know about your book before I dive in starting this week?
Um, just don't expect it to be very heavy. It's going to be very light. Actually, you might
Yeah,
laugh.
I love it. I think
Yeah.
that's something you and I have in common as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I laughed on yours too.
oh,
It's
good.
awesome. It's
Yay.
kind of like you can't when you write about dark stuff, sometimes you just you gotta have a sense of humor.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think
You
so.
don't
And I think
have to, but it's more it's more digestible, I feel.
yeah, it definitely, yeah, you don't have to. But there is something about just being a human. We don't really have that
Mhm.
many forms of expression, and laughter is such a like guttural, letting energy out. It's just such a pure human thing. I just think it's necessary. You got to cry too, though,
Yeah,
right?
there's a bit of both. Yes.
Yeah, a bit of
Yeah.
both. And that's what I kind of tried to let people know with my memoir is just like, I don't know what you're going to feel. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is
Yeah.
what happened
You'll
to
feel it
me.
too.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that, by the time we go through your book, we're going to do Jenna's book next month and then my book in December, that there will be others. There's one other one I know of, Scythe to Lepo, which
Mm,
is Nathan Rich. He has a
yeah,
book.
I saw
Um,
that, and he was at the Mojave School, right?
yes. So
Yeah,
I'm not
I'll
sure
have
I'll do
to
a whole month on his book, but in the new year I might do like a little,
yeah, I'll be
bite-sized
curious to
one.
read that too. I haven't had a chance, but I'm interested because that's a whole 'nother area of young
Yeah.
Scientologists raised in a strange way.
Exactly, exactly. And I know that the idea of like an anthology would also be really cool. To
Mhm.
have an anthology is lots of people putting, something together.
Yeah,
Um, you and I and Jenna, we could do an anthology and we could
yeah.
sell the crap out of that puppy.
That would be amazing. And I love this idea of where you're putting all this together, so appreciate it. So thanks for including me and having my book on.
Thank you. I'm just so proud of you, really. I don't know if you know this, but your book
Mhm.
came out like I'd already written mine, but I was still doing like cover and some formatting stuff. And so when yours came out, I had no idea that you had written a book or, it was on the pipeline or anything. And so it was really good for me because I had a big like FOMO moment and it really
Mhm.
pushed me to like get done with it.
Yeah.
Get out there because I was making a lot of excuses like maybe it's not good enough or there's this or there's that. And now it's not perfect. It's not a perfect book, but
Yeah.
you really helped me
Kick you
motivate
in
me
the
to get
butt.
moving. You did. You kicked me in the
I
butt and
know,
I
I surprised a lot of people. I'm glad I helped get your book out sooner, and it's so cool. Like, I think that people would be surprised to know that and I think it's the same for you, the more of us that are out there speaking out is actually warming and
yeah.
enjoyable, and I love it, and I like the more people on YouTube because that's the more people sharing the stories, it just makes it like, I don't know, a big party that we're all joining. And yeah, it was a big secret because I was going to be anonymous before my book came out. And then 2 weeks before, claimed my name and put it on there. So that's why it was a big shock to a lot of people. They're like, what the heck? So, but I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad
Yeah.
your book's out. This is so cool. Like, I get to do this with you. Like, I love this.
I love it. I'm so excited. I kind of have had a little bit of an identity crisis the past month and a half because of this whole YouTube thing. um,
Yeah.
and
It's
I
so
really
different.
it
Yeah.
is different. And I remembered, you know what? I just want to go back to my basics. I want to go back to like the things I really, really care about. And that is,
Yes.
I love writing. I love books and I love people being brave and telling their story. So that brought us to here.
Yay, I love that.
Okay, good. Well, I guess we can get off for now because I've got some reading to do.
Yay. And I
And
I
then,
wanted to tell you,
yeah,
you were talking about Nathan's book. My friend
yes,
Miriam, who's in my
yes.
book, her book's gonna probably come out early next year too. So another one to add to the anthologies. So
I'm
she's
so
working
excited.
on it. Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear that. And I did send Miriam a copy of my like ebook because she
Mhm.
couldn't get it down there for a while in Australia, though my book is available, just so you guys know, in the UK and Australia now,
Yay.
on Amazon. Um, so I will make sure that when I coordinate her month of release with that month of the book,
Yes.
and we'll do
Yeah,
it.
that would be
Um,
perfect. Yeah.
her I know a bit of her story
Yeah.
because we kind of overlapped on the Leah Remini show, and it's really gonna be. I'm really excited to hear how she presents it, what voice she comes at it with, and however she wants to be expressive about it. I'm excited and curious to see how it goes.
Yeah. It'll
Yeah.
be I'm helping her edit it as well. So it's gonna be everybody. I think she's a great writer. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, that is one thing that Scientology just really didn't know what they were doing. They're so,
Mhm.
so, so silly. They created a bunch of people who, at the end of the day, really want to take responsibility for their stories, like want to own their lives. They want to own themselves. They want to have integrity. They want to stand up for what's right. And they are really good writers. They
Yeah,
created some monsters.
really, they did.
Really, you messed up, guys.
Yes.
Oh, well, we'll keep telling them that, and then when you and I are both bestsellers on the New York Times list, though.
Yeah. We'll be like, thank you, Scientology, for making us who we are today.
That's right. Actually, really quickly before we go, did you do Key to Life by chance? I don't think that's a
No.
thing Sea Org members get access to. Okay.
You could have done it. Yeah. There were people who had done it at the ranch. I had not. I did student hat at the ranch. I was like
Okay.
halfway through. I got bogged down. I had too many MUs.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was so bored.
Oh,
I was like, this is so boring. These lectures are the worst.
yeah, I know. Well, and I didn't get very far on my student hat because I kept starting. You have to confront that piece of paper on the wall for 2 hours, and I
Mhm.
got to like an hour and 25 minutes like 3 times, and then I couldn't deal with it anymore.
Yeah. Oh
I,
man.
I started making excuses, and I blew. I'd rather be in ethics, literally, than staring at a piece of paper on the wall.
I
So,
can't believe on the STCC, success through
mhm,
communication, that we had to sit for like, I think it was an hour or 2 hours also with your eyes open. The eyes
mhm,
closed wasn't too bad because it's kind of meditative.
mhm.
I can't believe like, even now, I could barely meditate for like 3 minutes. I can't believe I did that as a child. Like, I
I
passed
know.
that. And
Well,
eyes
and
open too.
yeah, and it really stood out to me even in the little bit of book I read that you had a line in here where like, "Oh, maybe when I do my success through communication course, I'll be better." And I remember
Yeah.
having thoughts like that when I was little of like, "Oh, well, maybe if I do my like next Scientology." And I don't even know if it was my thought or I was being told that. But
Yeah.
now we're getting into chapters. We have to stop.
Okay.
I'm too
Okay. All right.
excited.
I know we could keep going forever. Oh gosh, it was so good talking to you, Liz. This was been
Yeah,
fun.
you too. You too. Okay, we'll say bye. I didn't even say hi. There were so many familiar faces in the comments, and I
Yeah,
did
I
not get
saw
a chance
that. I
to
saw
say hi to
Nora's
everybody.
here. Hi, Nora. Degraded
Yeah,
Daughters.
Kelly was in here. I saw
Oh
Lou
yeah.
a lot. Just so
Oh
much
yeah,
love to you
Lou.
guys.
Hi.
Thank
Yep.
you guys for supporting our Born In Book Club, and I hope you'll stick along for the ride. And now I'm gonna go because my kid is standing here. Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.